Hey, welcome back.
Good morning and good evening,
In the
everyone.
background,
To
start
NIO's
of
fourth
the
quarter
NIO
2022
earnings call.
conference call.
Should
The
work. I
company's
hope you hear
financial
the
and
audio.
operating results
Let me know in the comments if you can
in
hear
the
it
press
clearly.
release earlier today,
And
are
welcome
posted at the
if
company's
you are
IR
tuning in
website.
live,
On today's
but
call,
also
we have
welcome
Mr.
if you are
William Li,
watching that one
founder,
later,
chairman of the board,
as
and
a
chief
little bit of
executive officer.
managing
Mr.
here.
Stephen Song,
I
Chief
also
Financial
made a video
Officer,
before
Mr.
where I
Stanley
walked
Chu,
through the earnings
Senior
report that
VP of
NIO
Finance,
already
and
published
Ms.
this
Jade
morning.
Wei, VP of the Capital Markets.
So that's a separate video. You
Before
can
we
rewatch
continue,
it if
please
you
be
want my
kindly
full
reminded
take
that
on
today's
all of those
discussion
numbers,
will contain
how it
forward-looking
compares to my
statements
personal
made under the
expectations and
safe
such.
harbor provisions
And
of
now
the
what
US
we're going to do in
Private
this
Securities
video
Litigation
is
Reform
listening
Act of
to the earnings
1995.
call by the management, Li
Forward-looking
Bin, the
statements
CFO,
involve
and so on,
inherent risks
and the analyst
uncertainties.
questions,
As such,
which will
the
certainly
company's
grill
actual
management
results
here
may be
over
materially
this
different from the views
earnings
expressed
report.
today. Further information regarding risks and uncertainties is included in certain filings of the company with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. The Stock Exchange of Hong Kong.
So the very beginning might be a little bit boring
Limited.
because they will just
The
be
company does
reading
not
what's
assume
already
any
issued in the
obligation
earnings
to
report.
update any
Maybe I can use that
forward-looking
time to
statements,
rephrase a
except
little
as
bit
required under
what I've
applicable
just
law.
said in the other video
Please
about
also note that
my
NIO's
personal take on
earnings
these
press release
earnings.
and
But
this
then the
conference call
interesting part will be all about
discussions
the Q&A
of
session.
unaudited GAAP financial information as well as unaudited non-GAAP financial measures. Please refer to NIO's press release, which contains a reconciliation of the unaudited non-GAAP measures.
Feel free to share this live stream in NIO investor groups or elsewhere so that people can still fill up the room here until we hear more details about NIO earnings.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining NIO.
Might be another very lengthy call, which they have to finish before market opens. So 2.5 hours.
根据中汽中心的零售数据，未来在成交价30万以上的中国高端电动汽车市场排名第一，市场份额达到 54.8%。
Nice to see some familiar faces here. James Lur, Andrea Di Bernardi, Howard Jambers. I see you guys regularly in the comments. I really appreciate all of the comments I'm getting, and I would also appreciate if you smash the thumbs up. That's my currency as a YouTuber. Please help to share this video, make this channel grow. By the way, if you are not one of our patrons, I'll put the link here. You can become a patron to support this channel. As you know, I try and be a kind of independent voice here about Chinese investment opportunities with a particular focus on the EV landscape, so covering a lot of NIO and Tesla. However, as always, also know that I'm, of course, also putting my money where my mouth is, so I am also kind of biased. Don't take financial advice from YouTubers. Only you can pull the trigger, only you can invest. You need to manage your risk accordingly. But for example, in our community, we talk daily about matters that, of course, emerge all of the time here with investing in Chinese names. So I think these are just still very general remarks by management, reading off a script.
In February of 2023, we delivered 20,663 vehicles, representing a 30.89% increase year over year. We expected the total deliveries in the first quarter of this year to be between 31,000 and 33,000 units.
随着高端市场电动汽车渗透率的持续提升，以及未来更多新产品在今年2季度相继交付，我们对2023年全年的市场需求充满信心。
As the penetration rate of the premium EV grows and more new products expected to be delivered in the second quarter, we have a strong confidence in the market demand in 2023.
接下来，我跟大家交流一下产品研发和运营方面的进展。
Next, I would like to share some recent highlights of our product, R&D, and operations.
ET5从2022年9月底开始交付以来，生产稳步爬坡，交付整体上升。根据中汽中心的零售数据，今年1月份，在30万以上的中型轿车市场 ，ET5超越传统品牌同级众多油车的畅销车型，在北京、上海、广州、深圳等19个城市，交付量位列第一，在全国市场位列第二。
Since we started to deliver ET5 in September 2022, its production and delivery have been ramping up steadily. According to Catac's retail data, this January, among all the mid-size sedans priced over 300,000 RMB, NIO ET5 outperformed popular internal combustion vehicles from well-established brands and became the top-selling model in Beijing, Shanghai, Guangzhou, Shenzhen, and other 15 cities in China, and the second best-selling model nationwide in China.
2022年12月24日，蔚来在合肥举办 NIO Day 2022，发布了 SUV EC7 和全场景智能电动旗舰 SUV 全新 ES8。EC7 是一款大5座的轿跑 SUV， 传承了蔚来的高性能基因，拥有极致的驾控表现，预计于今年5月份开启交付。作为蔚来旗舰 SUV 车型，基于 NT2 平台全新升级的 ES8 有2种6座布局，能满足工作、家庭、社交和探索全场景需求，预计于今年6月份开启交付。2款新产品在发布后受到了广泛的关注和好评。
On December 24, 2022, we held NIO Day 2022 in Hefei, where we launched the smart electric flagship coupe SUV EC7 and the all-round flagship SUV, the all-new ES8. EC7 is a mid-large size coupe SUV that inherits NIO's high-performance DNA and delivers ultimate handling and riding experience. The delivery of the EC7 is expected to start in May. As NIO's flagship SUV based on the technology platform 2.0, the 6-seater all-new ES8 offers 2-seat layouts, catering to all scenarios, including work, family, social, and exploration. The delivery of the all-new ES8 is expected to start in June. Both new products have attracted wide attention and received great feedback.
今年上半年，蔚来将陆续推出更多新产品，加快从产品发布到用户交付的节奏。供应链和制造团队也在积极进行新车型切换和量产爬坡的准备工作，确保产能和供应满足新产品的需求增长。
In the first half of this year, NIO will gradually launch more new products and shorten the waiting time from launch to user delivery. Our supply chain and manufacturing teams have been preparing for new product launches and production ramp-up, making sure that supply and production go hand in hand with the growing demand for the new products.
智能驾驶方面，蔚来已经向 NT2 平台用户全量分批推送了 NOP Plus 增强领航辅助的 beta 版，基于全站自研的智能驾驶技术和数据闭环。NOP Plus beta 版在安心感、舒适性、通行效率等维度都有明显提升，使用率相比 NOP 提升了1倍。最近1周的总使用里程就超过了175万公里。我们将在今年上半年推出更多的功能，并且逐步实现高速领航换电。
For intelligent driving, NIO has gradually rolled out NOP Plus beta to all NT2 vehicles based on our full-stack in-house developed intelligent driving technologies and closed-loop data management. NOP Plus beta has realized significant improvements in areas of a sense of reassurance, comfort, and efficiency. The utilization rate has doubled with a total engaged mileage of over 1.75 million kilometers in the recent week. We plan to roll out more features and functions to our users and will gradually release Power Swap Palette for highway in the first half of this year.
销售和服务网络方面 我们现有375家未来中心和未来空间，覆盖141个城市，拥有305家服务中心和交付中心，覆盖148个城市。
With respect to the sales and service network, we now have 375 new houses and new spaces in 141 cities, and 305 new service centers and new delivery centers in 148 cities.
充换电网络方面，我们已经累计布局1331座换电站，累计为用户提供超过1800万次换电服务。我们也已经累计部署6385根超充桩和7555根目的地充电桩。与此同时，我们的充电地图接入了第三方充电桩超过104万根。2022年，未来用户为车辆补充的电量超过50%来自于换电站，换电已经成为未来用户最便捷和依赖的补能方式。
In terms of the charging and swapping network, NIO has installed a total of 1,331 power swap stations and provided over 18 million battery swaps for our users. In the meantime, NIO has cumulatively deployed 6,385 power chargers and 7,558 destination chargers. And our power map has been connected to over 1.04 million third-party chargers. In 2022, 50% of the power charged by our users is from battery swapping stations, which has become the most convenient and favorite solution among NIO users.
2023年，未来将加快换电网络的布局速度，计划新增1000座换电站。到2023年底，累计建成超过2300个换电站。目前，第3代站的量产工作进展顺利，预计4月份开始大规模量产。换电站的加速布局不仅能够给现有用户提供超越期待的体验，也将为需求的增长提供强有力的支持。
In 2023, NIO will speed up the development of the battery swapping network and plan to install additional 1,000 power swap stations. By the end of 2023, there will be more than 2,300 power swap stations in total. So far, the mass production of Power Swap Station 3.0 is going forward smoothly, with large-scale production expected to start in April. The accelerated deployment of power swap stations can not only provide existing users with experiences beyond expectations, but also significantly boost user demand.
去年4季度，蔚来正式进入德国、荷兰、丹麦、瑞典，向欧洲用户提供 NT2 车型和全体系服务。
In Q4 2022, NIO started to offer NT 2.0 products and comprehensive services in Germany, the Netherlands, Denmark, and Sweden.
蔚来产品在欧洲受到专业媒体的高度认可，用户满意度也达到了我们的预期。继斩获德国金方向盘之后 ，ET7 屡次荣获欧洲大奖，包括丹麦汽车大奖年度领先技术奖、瑞典传威汽车杂志 AMS 颁发的年度汽车和最佳豪华车2项大奖。荷兰商业车主协会评选的2023年度。
Once again, if you're now just tuned in, welcome to our live stream where we are listening to NIO earnings call and analyst questions to the management of Li Bin. I've made another video about my takeaway about the earnings report. Please go watch that one later if you missed it so far. But with this one, I will take your questions also later on. Please feel free to share it in investor community and smash a like.
In Europe, and the user satisfaction rate has also reached our expectations. After obtaining the prestigious Golden Steering Wheel Award, ET7 was honored with multiple awards in Europe, such as the Technological Front Runner of the Year at the Danish Auto Awards, Car of the Year and the Best in the Luxury segment by Automoto Sports Sweden, and the Promise of 2023 by the Association of Business Drivers in Netherlands. On January 31st, 2023, we started to deliver EL7 our mid-large smart electric SUV to the first batch of users in Europe. As we continue to introduce a more diversified product portfolio, expand our sales service and power network, improve our brand awareness, we are confident in our long-term development in Europe.
在自研电池、AD 芯片、大众市场品牌等战略新业务的研发方面，总体进展在按计划推进。
The R&D efforts of our strategic new businesses, including batteries, AD chips, and mass market brand, are also well on track.
未来的发展离不开用户一如既往的支持。2022年一共有4447位用户志愿者投入到车展、NIO Day 等活动中。未来用户也在积极为社会贡献力量，志愿者公益活动达到6204人次。
The development of NIO wouldn't have been possible without our users' continued support. In 2022, 4,447 users volunteered at auto shows, NIO Day, and other events. NIO users have also been actively making contributions to society with the participation of public welfare activities reaching 6,204 people times in 2022.
Regarding the quality, this one has just also been recognized in a recent survey in Norway, where NIO ranked #2 for quality and meeting expectations behind BMW, including all of the EVs in this most important EV market in the world. So quite good, actually. I posted that one in the Patreon community. Join it. Feel free for regular updates. And it's also included in my last video about the earnings report.
2023, NIO was recognized in Corporate Knights 2023 Global 100, the world's most sustainable companies list. Among 333 companies in the car and trucks manufacturing, including parts category, NIO ranked first. In the meantime, on January 31st, 2023, NIO's second advanced manufacturing base was certified 3-star green building and LEED Gold, marking the first of its kind in China.
未来高度重视低碳发展、环境保护与生态共建，并积极践行可持续发展理念，持续提升 ESG 表现和实践。
We attach particular importance to low carbon development, environmental protection, and ecosystem co-construction, and actively practice sustainable philosophy to continuously improve our ESG performance.
2022年，我们围绕未来的长期竞争力，在核心技术和产品研发、充换电和销售服务网络布局、全球市场开拓等方面坚决投入，并取得了重要进展，为公司的长远发展奠定了坚实的基础。
In 2022, to build our long-term competitiveness, we made decisive investment and achieved positive strides in the research and development of core technologies and products, the deployment of charging and swapping infrastructure, as well as the sales and service network, and the global market expansion, laying a solid foundation for the company's long-term growth.
2023年，随着 NT2 平台全系产品的发布和交付，我们将全力以赴为用户提供超越期待的体验。同时，我们将致力于执行效率的全面提升，以敏捷高效的工作节奏参与全球电动汽车市场的长期竞争。
As our product portfolio transitions to NT 2.0 with more new products to be launched and delivered in 2023, we will do our level best to provide users with experiences beyond expectations. At the same time, we aim for all-round execution efficiency improvements so as to compete in the global EV market in the long run in an agile and efficient manner.
感谢大家的支持。现在 Steven 将为大家介绍2022年第4季度的财务业绩。有请 Steven。
As always, thank you for your support. With that, I will now turn the call over to Steven to provide the financial details for the fourth quarter. Over to you, Steven.
Thank you, William. I will now go over our key financial results for the fourth quarter of 2022. And to be mindful of this length of this call, I will reference to RMB only, in my discussion today. I encourage listeners to refer to our earnings press release, which is posted online for additional details. Our total revenues in the fourth quarter were 16.1 billion RMB, representing an increase of 62.2% year-over-year and 5%.
We're still in a boring part of this conference call where he's just kind of reading from the script. So where it will be interesting will be the analyst questions, where NIO management will be grilled on the margins, I guess. And we'll see what they have to respond.
60.2% year-over-year and 23.7% quarter-over-quarter. The increase in vehicle sales year-over-year was mainly attributed to higher deliveries as a result of a more diversified product mix offered to our users. The increase in vehicle sales quarter-over-quarter was mainly due to volume ramp-up of the ET5 and ES7. Other sales in the fourth quarter were 1.3 billion RMB, representing an increase of 90.3% year-over-year, an increase of 22% quarter-over-quarter. The increase in other sales year-over-year was mainly due to the increase of revenue from rendering of research and development services and increase in other revenues in line with the incremental vehicle sales. The increase in other sales quarter-over-quarter was mainly due to the increase of revenue from rendering of research and development services and increase in sales from accessories, charging piles, and used cars in line with the incremental vehicle sales, partially offset by the sales of automotive regulatory credits in the third quarter of 2022. Gross margin in the fourth quarter of 2022 was 3.9%, compared with 17.2% in the fourth quarter of 2021 and 13.3% in the third quarter of 2022. The decrease of gross margin year-over-year was mainly attributed to decrease of vehicle margin. Decrease of gross margin quarter-over-quarter was mainly attributed to decreased vehicle margin, and the decrease in other sales margin mainly resulted from the sales of automotive regulatory credits with high gross margin in the third quarter of 2022. More specifically, vehicle margin in the fourth quarter was 6.8%, compared with 20.9% in the fourth quarter of 2021 and 16.4% in the third quarter of 2022. The decrease of vehicle margin year-over-year was mainly attributed to, first, increased inventory provisions, accelerated depreciation on production facilities, and losses on purchase commitments for the existing generation of ES8, ES6, and ES6 that are expected to have lower production levels and deliveries due to the transition to new models on the NIO technology platform 2.0, which in totality negatively impacted vehicle margin by 6.7%. And second, increased battery cost per unit. The decrease of vehicle margin from the third quarter of 2022 was mainly due to the increased inventory provisions, accelerated depreciation on production facilities, and the losses on purchase commitments for the existing generation of ES8, ES6, and EC6. R&D expenses in the fourth quarter were 4.0 billion RMB, representing an increase of 117.7% year-over-year and 35.2% quarter-over-quarter. The increase in R&D expenses year-over-year and quarter-over-quarter was attributed to the increased personnel costs in research and development functions, as well as the incremental design and development costs of new products and technologies. SG&A expenses in the fourth quarter were 3.5 billion RMB, representing an increase of 49.6% year-over-year and 30% quarter-over-quarter. The increase in SG&A expenses year-over-year and quarter-over-quarter was primarily due to, first, the increase in personnel costs related to sales and general corporate functions. Second, the increase in marketing and promotion activities to promote our vehicles in China and Europe. Third, increased expenses related to the company's sales and service network expansion. Loss from operations in the fourth quarter was 6.7 billion RMB, representing an increase of 175.5% year-over-year and 74% quarter-over-quarter. Other income net in the fourth quarter of 2022 was 315.7 million RMB, representing an increase of 262.2 million RMB from the fourth quarter of 2021, an increase of 811.3 million RMB from other losses of 495.6 million RMB in the third quarter of 2022. The increase of other incomes year-over-year and quarter-over-quarter was mainly due to the gains from the revaluation of our overseas RMB-related assets as a result of the appreciation of RMB against its donors in the fourth quarter of 2022. Net loss in the fourth quarter was 5.8 billion RMB, representing an increase of 169.9% year-over-year and 40.8% quarter-over-quarter. Net loss attributable to NIO's ordinary shareholders in the fourth quarter was 5.8 billion RMB, representing an increase of 100.
Let's get over this report. It's boring. Let's get to the analyst questions.
41.2% quarter-over-quarter. Our balance of cash and cash equivalents, restricted cash, short-term deposits was 45.5 billion RMB as of December 31st, 2022. Now, this concludes our prepared remarks. I will now turn the call over to the operator to facilitate our Q&A session.
Thank you. If you wish to ask a question, please press star one on your telephone and wait for your name to be announced. If you wish to cancel your request, please press star then two. If you're on a speakerphone, please pick up your handset to ask your question. For the benefit of all participants on today's call, please limit yourself to 2 questions. And if you have additional questions, you can re-enter the queue. Our first question today comes from Tim Zhang with Morgan Stanley. Please go ahead.
管理层你好，非常感谢接受我的提问。我现在2个问题啊。那第一个问题是有关于就是零部件供应链跟这个量。就是去年其实这个年底的时候，未来整车的交付呢，我们看到受到这个零部件，比如说铝合金副车架、EDS 跟摄像头芯片的一些前置啊。那根据这次这个财报一季度的指引，显示3月份的这个交付还是偏弱。那是否关键零部件的供给呢？目前看起来还是有一些瓶颈。那是不是可以请管理层分享一下最新的情况？那目前零部件整体的这个匹配最高的这个整车的月度和周度产出的数量大概是多少？那我们在2季度大概会看到什么样的一个改善？这是我的第一个问题。So my first question is about the supply chain and also the volume, because NIO's shipments last year were seriously dragged by the supply bottleneck of aluminum parts, EDS, and chips. So according to the announcement of NIO's first quarter volume guidance of 31 to 33,000, also suggests more moderate vehicle sales in March. Is that because some components are still suffering from supply constraints? And what's current vehicle production run rate and how fast you could ramp up on weekly and monthly base into second quarter？ 好，这是我的第一个问题，谢谢。
谢谢 Tim。去年的4季度确实因为零部件的供应影响了我们一些车的交付，但你也知道，这个今年的1季度，这个从1月份开始，事实上中国的这个疫情的管控，疫情的整个这个基本上已经结束了，所以目前来讲的话呢，我们的零部件的供应总体来说已经不太是一个瓶颈了。那我们当然这个在2季度开始，随着我们新车的这个交付，在初期的话呢，我们会有一些爬坡这样的一些挑战，但从全年来讲的话呢，如果以现在的情况来讲的话，我们认为这个供应方面的这个压力对我们来说是会大大的下降，从目前来讲不太会成为我们的一个制约因素。
Thank you, Tim, for your question. In the fourth quarter of last year, the supply of the parts have affected our vehicle deliveries to some extent. But starting from the first quarter of this year, we have seen that the control and prevention measures regarding the COVID have been lifted. So currently, we believe the supply of the parts is not the bottleneck for us. Starting from the second quarter, we believe with our new vehicle deliveries, we will need to have some time to ramp up the productions, but we don't believe the part supply will be a constraint for us.
好的，那谢谢。我第二个问题是有关于可能毛利率跟这个电池的价格，因为第一就是我们看到4季度毛利下降比较明显。好，那这个公告里面提到毛利率这个6.7个点的影响，多少是一次性的，多少是会延续到1季度。那同时间今年的好消息可能是电池降价吧。那就是和宁德采购这个长期采购的合作以及电池成本降价之后，这个对于集团利润的一个贡献。那因为之前可能威廉之前有提到，就是碳酸锂价格每变动10万元，会影响未来这边2个点的毛利。好，所以我们在和这个电池厂谈判的话，这一块对于我们全年大概会有一个多大的贡献？这个是不是可以请您分享一下？ So my second question is about the battery cost and also the gross margin, because the fourth quarter vehicle gross margin dropped more significantly. So we think the 6.7 percentage point margin shortfall mentioned in the announcement, how much of that would be one-off, and how much of that would be lasting into first quarter? And in the meantime, on the bright side, I think battery prices caught you well to the vehicle margin, newest vehicle margin this year. So how should we think about the contribution from the renewed battery contract prices? Because I recall that we mentioned every 100,000 RMB decrease in lithium carbonate will lead to about 2 percentage point vehicle gross margin expansion. So could you please share some updates regarding how much more contribution from the lower battery costs should we expect this year or in first half? Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. This is Danny. First, I want to further clarify the Q4's 2020's gross profit margin. Since our brand new ES8, ES6, E6 will start user delivery in Q2 2023, so we lower our order forecast for current generation ES8, ES6, and EC6 in Q4 2022. So inventory provision and losses on purchase commitments relate to those products was booked in Q4 with total amount of RMB 985 million. Excluding this impact, the vehicle margin in Q4 was 13.5%. So compared with the last quarter, the decrease results from the change of product mix, especially more ET5 sold in Q4 with lower gross profit margin. And for the forecast of gross profit margin in 2023, I ask William to help explain. Okay.
全年来讲的话呢，我们这个认为这个在这个 Q4 或者说全年吧，那个 Q4 吧，我们认为爬升到18到20个点的一个毛利，我们还是有信心的。当然几个方面的影响，一个的话呢是我们的产品组合，因为我们从 Q2 开始的话，我们的 相对来说高毛利一些的产品会陆续的交付。那么第二个来讲的话呢，是这个你也谈到的这个锂价和原材料价格的一些下降啊，包括芯片成本的一些下降，那么这个对我们的影响还是比较大的。那目前来讲的话，我们看到碳酸锂最近的话呢，在比较快速的下降啊，我们也看到了市场上一般的这个认为的话呢，是包括我们前2天我们也刚刚跟很多上游的材料的公司做了非常密集的交流啊，也了解他们的产能的情况和投产的情况。那么在今年还是有非常多的这种锂的产出啊，这个在今年投产。那么我们也看到需求的话呢，肯定不会像去年那么强劲，这个去年确实是超过了大家的预计。所以总的来说，我们认为在 Q4 是有机会下降到20万，甚至于比它更低的碳酸锂的这么一个价格。那么第三个当然也是我们认为从 Q3 开始，我们的这个整个的交付量会显著的上升，因为我们在 Q2 的话，我们的新产品都会陆续的交付。那么随着这个销量和交付量的上升的话，我们很多固定的成本的分摊啊，也会能够得到很好的一个改善。所以总的来说，我们认为回到18到20个点的一个毛利的水平，是我们追求的一个目标，我们认为也是有信心实现的。
So for the gross margin for the full year of 2023, we are confident that in the Q4 of 2023, the vehicle gross margin will go back to 18 to 20% due to several factors. The first one is our product portfolio. Starting from the second quarter of this year, we are going to start the delivery of vehicle models with higher vehicle gross margins. And the second factor is, just like you mentioned, recently we have witnessed the cost reductions of the raw materials, including the lithium carbonate, chips, and other commodities. So we believe this will also contribute to our vehicle gross margin improvement in this year. Especially when it comes to the lithium carbonate cost, we have witnessed significant cost reductions. We have also engaged discussions with the upstream companies in the battery supply chain. We understand that there are some capacities reserved for the lithium carbonate this year, and starting from this year, we're going to see more output from the upstream capacities. At the same time, considering the market demand, we believe the demand probably is not going to be that strong compared with the past, but if we balance the supply and the demand regarding the lithium carbonate, we believe probably in the fourth quarter of this year is quite likely the lithium carbonate cost will go down to probably around 200,000 RMB or even lower. The third factor we believe is that starting from the third quarter of this year, we're going to start more product deliveries. This is mainly because more new product will be delivered to our users starting from the second quarter of this year. So we believe with the ramp up of the vehicle deliveries, the amortization rate of the fixed cost will also improve. So our target still remains that we can achieve the vehicle gross margin of 18 to 20%, and we're very confident that we can achieve that.
我想补充一下，一季度我们还是会面临比较大的压力，因为一季度对我们来说还是一个转换期。大家也看到了，我们的销量的话呢，也在一个转换期，因为我们要。
Okay, this is kind of what investors really wanted to have a clarification on about the margins. So generally, they're guiding to reaching back to 18% to 20%, outlining those kind of reasons that you've heard, which is still, I mean, it's great that they're coming back, but the NT 2.0 platform overall should be able to achieve above 20% gross margin. So that seems to be kind of not happening this year, rather next year, which isn't uber bullish, if you will, right? So it's indicating some time is needed for that, but there is a guidance for that. So kind of what analysts want?
For the first quarter of this year, we believe that we're going to face more pressure on the vehicle gross margin, considering the overall situation. Because this is a transitional period for the company when it comes to the vehicle sales, because we are transitioning into a new technology platform for our product portfolio to the NT2 2.0. So it means that for the existing generation of the ES8, ES6, and the EC6, we will need to have some measures to accommodate the subsidy reduction, as well as some subsidization of the show cars. At the same time, when it comes to the production capacities, because we need to prepare for the launch of the new generation ES8, ES6, and EC6 in our factory 1. So we need to do some modifications and the toolings of the production lines. This has affected the output of the factory 1 in the first quarter, which resulting a higher vehicle cost for our products. So at the same time, when it comes to the specific quarter, that is the first quarter of this year, we will also see that the ET5 contribute as a large portion of the overall vehicle delivery, which will also affect our vehicle's margin in the first quarter.
Thank you, Tim.
Great. Thank you for sharing. Thank you very much.
The next question comes from Ming Zun Li with Bank of America. Please go ahead.
William 还有各位领导你们好。那谢谢让我提问了。那我这边也是2个问题。那第一个问题呢是关
So while this analyst asking his question in Chinese, quick take. So I think the outlook that they gave here is that it's still taking time for this whole margin impact that we've seen already since at least 2 quarters, or maybe before it was more a little bit of the macro environment, but the transition phase to this latest platform still seeming to have quite the impact also going forward. So I would say what I'm reading here is like before Q3, Q4, there isn't a realistic chance for a big margin improvement, and that certainly isn't great to hear. And I would say that this is also, certainly a setback, right?
Guidance for sales and marketing as well as R&D expense. 谢谢，这是我第一个问题。
I mean, this is Danny. The guidance for R&D expense, I think we keep this guidance, and our average base for each quarter of 2023, we will the non-GAAP R&D expense will be around 3 to 3.5 billion RMB. So that's for R&D expense, and for SG&A, as mentioned by William, along with the start of user delivery of our new NT2 product in Q2, we think our sales efficiency will be improved gradually, and the ratio of SG&A versus sales revenue is expected to drop significantly. So that's for the first question. Thank you, Ming.
我补充一下，就是我们在 SG&A 的时候，因为我们会把欧洲的这个投入都是算在里面。欧洲总体的，它现在销量还是很早期投入是一个初期，投入量会比较大一些，所以有时候看我们这个效率的时候，可能也要把我们在全球市场进入方面的考虑进去。
Just to add to Stanley's point, regarding the SG&A, because we also need to consider the investment for the European market. For the European market, right now we're still at a relatively early stage in terms of the vehicle sales and the deliveries. We believe that this is more like an investment period for our global market expansion.
谢谢。那我的第二个问题呢是关于这个产品投放。那想确定一下，因为今年的新车主要就是 866 EC7跟 ET5的列装版。
All right, I think there wasn't too much news in there. Of course, they have to invest some money for the European expansion, and I pointed out in my previous video about SG&A. Comparably to the volumes, it's currently staying more or less flat, so that's actually good. They don't need more money spent per vehicle sold. Yeah, let's see. Maybe there's some better analyst questions coming, digging more into the next couple of quarters. And I think the margins, this is kind of the main concern here.
To product pipeline. So this year you will have a new ES8, ES6, and the EC6, EC7, and ET5 wagon version. So what will be the time for ES6 and the EC6 to be delivered? Besides that, for ES7 and the ET7, well, you have a facelift version to further improve your autonomous driving function as well as smart cabin function. Meanwhile, could you also elaborate your rough product pipeline for 2024, include the second brand? 谢谢。
谢谢。今年2季度的话呢，我们这个是会按照目前最新的计划，我们会交付4款车啊，当然这里面包括这个 ES6，当然是我们最重要的车型。那么我们在7月份还会交付这个今年的第5款车，所以呢，这比我们原计划呢稍稍晚1个月，因为原来我们的计划是2季度要交付5款车，但我们后来认识到这个还是需要给到这个每一款车稍微多一点的时间啊。保证上市时候的这个品质啊，包括这个上市时候的这个营销的节奏。那其他的当然产品持续的迭代改善，这个都一直是我们在做的。这个我们会及时的跟市场去交流。那明年的产品节奏现在还太早了，我们还是先把现在这几个月要交5款车，这个压力已经很大了，我们还是先把最近的这几款车交好。但我能说的是。未来的产品规划一直都是非常的严谨和非常的按照计划去推进的，所以我们当然从目前来讲的话呢，按照我们的节奏和计划推出包括新的品牌、新的产品，这个我们的节奏就是按照自己的节奏在前进的，所以目前都是按照计划在推进的。
Thank you for your question. Actually, for the second quarter of this year, we are according to our latest plan, we expected to launch 4 new models, including our most important product, probably that is the ES6. And in July, we plan to deliver the 5th model. Actually, this is a little bit late compared with our previous plan, because our previous plan is that in the second quarter of this year, we're going to deliver all the 5 new models. But we realized that probably it's better for us to have some breathing room between different product launches, so we can probably ensure much higher quality of the products and also make sure the teams have a much better pace for the product deliveries and sales. In terms of the product upgrades, we have been continuously making product improvements, and we will keep the market informed if there's any kind of update. When it comes to the product launch cadence for the next year, I think probably this is not the right timing for us to share those information because right now I believe the teams are facing tremendous pressure. After we can deliver the 5 new models this year with very high standards. But all in all, we have our own pace and our own schedules when it comes to our new product launch and also our new brand. And in terms of the product launch cadence and of a new brand, everything is on track according to our plan.
Thank you, Ming.
谢谢 William. Thank you, William.
Okay, so I think the product cadence, as I pointed out also in my previous video, is actually a good thing for NIO, because just let me this analyst speak.
Still maintain a guidance for 250K, because given that recently in the price cut by the competitors in the first quarter delivery, actually earlier phase of the products. So we do actually maintain the full year volume guidance about 250K. That's number one. Number two, you actually mentioned earlier the number 4 quarter for NIO brands that alone will be turned around to profitable. Given a change in the external competition, do you actually maintain the same guidance? Thank you.
Okay, back to model cadence. I think that's actually a competitive advantage for NIO. That's at least my point of view. However, it's clear that it's not going in an ideal way, and they have learned from previous launches that there have been issues with the earlier products, and now kind of trying to apply those lessons to have some more buffering time in between. My main concern would be that they sometimes have too large of a gap between announcing models and launching the new models, but overall, a fast pace and cadence of launching new models is really what the market needs, and where, for example, foreign companies, including Tesla, frankly, are lacking a little bit behind. But NIO needs to become better. Maybe, for example, like Li Auto, which is timing this really well with new models. So until they've managed that and bring it all onto the NT 2.0 platform, unfortunately, it seems quite chaotic for now.
Year of 2023, we are confident that we can achieve our targets. After we complete our product deliveries, we believe we will see some upside momentum for our vehicle deliveries. For this year, we are going to deliver 5 new products based on the NT2 technology platform. After all of our product portfolio transitions to the NT2 platforms, it means that we are going to enter a very strong product cycle. We believe that this can actually improve our team efficiency much better, because the teams don't need to sell 2 generation products at the same time. After we transition all the product portfolio into the technology platform 2.0, we believe we are going to cover probably 80% of the mainstream vehicle models for the BMW, Audi, Mercedes, and when you compare our products with their products, we believe our product competitiveness is much stronger.
第二个增长的动力呢是我们的这个充换电体系你们应该也看到了，我们今年要新增1000个换电站那么我们想这个也是会给我们进到更多的市场比如说3、4线的城市提供了一个动力这个是非常重要的。那我们现在去年我们到目前为止，我们一半的用户50%多以上的用户分布在上海、江苏和浙江这3个省市。那么从另外一方面来讲的话呢，也能说明的话呢，我们还有巨大的这个市场空间等着我们去拓展。所以我们今年的这1000个换电站，不光是补充现在的用户的这样的一些体验更多的还是对这个进入更多市场的这样的一个支撑。
The second driver is going to be our charging and swapping network. This year, we plan to deploy additional 1,000 power swap stations to cover more markets. Especially, we believe that this is going to help us to boost our demand in the Tier 3 and Tier 4 cities. Probably some of you know that for our current vehicle deliveries, over 50% of our vehicle deliveries happens in Shanghai, Jiangsu, and Zhejiang. So at the same time, if you look at the overall vehicle delivery landscape of NIO's products, it means that we have a huge potential to explore in other cities and the regions. So we believe with the deployment of the additional 1,000 power swap stations, we can cover more users and also improve the experience of the existing users, which can also support our vehicle demand growth in other different cities and regions as well.
第三个增长的动力来自于我们在NT2 平台上的这样一些软件的逐步的这个功能的释放和更加成熟。我前面也讲到了，最近1周我们 NOP Plus 的使用里程就超过了175万公里。那我们因为所有的车都是标配的， 这个算力和这个传感器。那这个数据闭环的这个优势是巨大的啊！我们已经在很多第三方测评里面，我们的这个 NOP Plus 都是取代第1名啊。那我想这一点，包括还有其他的这个我们 NT2 平台的这样的一些，包括座舱啊，包括音响这方面的一些体验，都是逐步的完善。我们相信这也是能够极大的增加我们的产品竞争力，因为我们的一些同行，他们都选择的是这个选配的这样的一些策略，是标配的这样一个策略。那我们从这个今年随着更多功能的释放，这个会极大的增加我们产品的竞争力。
At the same time, when we look at the software features and functions that are planned to be released on the new technology platform 2.0, we believe it will also contribute to other vehicle demands. Just like I mentioned in the recent week, the engaged mileage of the the NOP Plus beta is over 1.75 million kilometers. All of our products come standard with the strong computing power and the sensor suite. So this actually provides a huge foundation for us to have a closed loop data management. If you look at all the tests by the third parties or by the professional medias, NOP Plus beta ranks the first in all those tests. So we believe together with other improvements in terms of the digital cockpit and as well as the audio systems and other softwares and features in our product, this will significantly boost the product competitiveness of our products, because when you look at the competitors or the peers in the market, most competitors, they offer those functions and features as an option, but for us, because everything comes as a standard, so it means that we will have a huge room to upgrade the experience of our users.
所以综合来说，我们的目标还是按照全年去3倍的这样的一个。
So the NIO pilot was actually also something which really surprised me with the ET7 in Germany right now. So I'm using it and it's really working quite well in Germany already. I was surprised to see that. But the NIO Pilot Plus is actually the first step to NIO NAD, which they haven't released yet. So that will ultimately unlock the higher profitability or margins for service business. But there is still also not, let's say, a new deadline for when NAD subscription will be, finally released. But certainly something to look forward to, and something where they point out that this is actually really top at the benchmarking with other companies.
Target is still to double the volume in this year, and our teams are quite confident to achieve this target. When it comes to the profitability, this is closely bundled together with the gross margin. So if the raw material cost reduction can meet our expectations, like I explained before, then for the fourth quarter, we believe this probably can still achieve the target that we set before. But when we made the plan to become positive, we didn't consider the strategic new business investment. So it means that for the fourth quarter of this year, our target is that put aside the investment for the strategic new businesses of a new brand, the main business of the new brand can still achieve break even.
Thank you. Thank you.
So they're basically guiding for a profitable quarter by the end of this year, but only for the normal business, not considering the investment necessary for the sub-brands which they are launching. So it's actually not going to be a profitable quarter, considering that the sub-brands are being launched.
What's the key driver to support? Is it broadly a sector demand related or any specific service network expansion supported? The second question is on lithium to margin. The lithium price is correcting. We talked about before about 100K RMB per ton price correction, roughly release 2% margin. So roughly we might get 4 to 8% buffer this year. Can we keep them all? or we might have to pass some to the consumers given the universal pricing pressure. On that notion, will us take the cathode deal to get lower lithium price, but to lock up more sourcing share with them? Thank you.
The questions are flying in quickly. I can almost not finish my sentences.
我们的 NT2 的产品都发布了以后，你可以基本上来讲，把我们的产品分成3个聚类。第一个当然就是我们的主要的这个销量包括你说的 ET5 包括我们 ES6 当然 ET5 我们会和 ET5 的 Touring， 当然大家也都已经知道了虽然我们还没有正式发布，这个我们会 combine 在一起。我们认为ET5 加上 ET5 的 Touring 和 ES6， 我们的目标是希望能够实现2万一个月的销量。我们认为这个市场的容量是足够容纳我们制定这样一个目标的。那么在这个上面的话呢，我们当然会有一些销量的贡献的一些车型，比如说 ET7、ES7 ES8。那么这次车的话，每款车差不多是2000到4000台之间的这么一个所以加起来的话，可能差不多是在1万台左右，8000到1万台左右。那么如果再去看的话呢，再往上一些就是我们一些锐化我们品牌的这样的一些车型，比如说我们的 Coupe SUV EC7 EC6 这样的一些车型。那么这个当然它主要是表现我们在设计在品味这方面的一些追求的那有一些比较追求个性的用户比较喜欢这样的车，那我们当然希望它能多卖一些，但这个当然它会小众一些那差不多是1-2000台一个月的销量。所以总的来说结合在一起，我们认为我们现在的产品组合是能够支持我们每个月的销量超过3万台，是足够支持的。
Thank you for your question. Starting from the second quarter of this year, we are going to gradually launch and deliver all the products based on the new technology platform 2.0. When it comes to the total product portfolio, we can look at them into 3 different dimensions. The first one is the volume driver, that is the ET5, ES6, and the ET5 Touring that we haven't released, but I believe everyone knows. So if we combine the ET5 Touring and the ES6 together, we believe is possible for us to achieve 20,000 units per month if we consider the addressable market. When it comes to the second dimension, that is the volume contributor, that includes the ET7, ES7, and the ES8. We believe for those models, each model can achieve a delivery volume around 2,000 to 4,000 per month. And if we combine them together, then for this volume contributor segment, this probably can contribute 8,000 to 10,000 units for overall vehicle delivery and sales. For the third dimension, that is the brand shaper, that is over coupe SUVs, the EC7 and the EC6. Because the coupe SUV is a relatively niche market, and we believe that this can probably help us to better showcase of a brand design taste. And for those users who would like it to be different and they want to show off their taste and their sense of design, then probably they can choose this brand shaper product. Of course, we hope to sell more products, including the brand shaper, but this is a relatively niche market segment. So we believe for this brand shaper, that is the EC7 and the EC6, probably the volume is around 1,000 to 2,000 per month for each product. So if we look at the complete product portfolio of all those products, we believe those strong product portfolio and diversified product portfolio should be able to support us to achieve a volume of 30,000 units per month.
Okay, Chen, this is Steven. I would like to answer your second question about the lithium price. First, we totally agree that our GP margin is very sensitive to the lithium price. As you have mentioned, if the lithium increased by 100,000 RMB per ton, our GP margin can be boosted by as far as 200 percentage point. So that means we expect or we believe this year there's a good chance that the lithium carbonate price will retreat to around 200,000 RMB per ton, and that will translate a good GP margin elasticity for NIO. And if you look at the lithium carbonate price, in the past it was just like around 100,000 RMB, and then it peaked around 570,000 RMB in November 2022, which increased the whole EV industry. And then from the beginning of this year, the lithium carbonate price has already retreated to around 400,000 RMB per ton. Looking forward on the supply side, as several battery suppliers invested in the upstream raw material efforts, and these efforts started to yield meaningful lithium carbonate supply from the second quarter of this year. So from the supply side, we do see a stable increase. On demand side, yes, last year, China's EV sales volume almost doubled. But if you look at this year, a good estimation is around 30%. So we expect the gap between the supply and demand will reduce significantly, which will lead to a lower and more reasonable lithium carbonate price around 2,000 RMB per ton. Not for the least, when we look at the production cost of lithium carbonate, if you look at the lepidolite production cost, which is around 150,000 RMB, so a lithium carbonate price around 200,000 RMB per ton can offer a good profit room for such lepidolite supply to offer stable. So in short, if the lithium carbonate price will retreat quite a lot this year, and that's good for the whole industry.
Thank you, Sam.
The next question comes from Paul Gong with UBS. Please go ahead.
Hi, thanks for taking my questions. Two questions. The first one is regarding the latest sales trend of ES7 and ET7. I understand that the 866, these remodels are phasing out. That is a temporary weakness before switching to the new platform. And I also see you have put a lot of the expectation on the NT2 platform products. But what has been driving the weakness of the ES7 and ET7 recently? Is it due to the immediate hangover effect of the subsidy cut, or is it due to the supply chain bottleneck, or is it like capacity allocation to ET5 that has cannibalized the ES7 and ET7 sales? So what has been the reason for the recent weakness of these two new platform kind of flagship models? My second question is regarding the efficiency improvement. I think William has spoken internally beginning of this year regarding the key effort of efficiency improvement in 2023. So what has been the key area that you want to improve? We can still see you invest a lot for the future, including the 1,000 battery swapping stations to be deployed for this year, including the expansion and the NIO house in Europe. But where can we find the efficiency improvements, and that's the expense ratio or reduction for the rest of this year?
Finally, some very good questions by this analyst. Let's hope we get some clarity on these matters.
的话呢，确实市场的需求还是，特别是纯电的这个需求还是受到了一些影响。那大家如果去看的话呢，当然我们的同行也都已经发布了1月份 交付数啊，都是有一些压力的。当然，很重要的一个原因呢，还是因为这个去年这个到年底，因为这个中国的补贴是到了去年年底就彻底的退坡了啊。那也就是说，今年是完全没有补贴了。
While Li Bin is talking Chinese, maybe I think the iteration was that with the current lineup without the sub-brands, they see 30K monthly deliveries as the target of the potential that the market can absorb. Of course, that's some months and quarters out. That will not happen immediately. So I think that is the potential, which would make around 360,000 annual sales only for that. As I said, excluding the sub-brands. And of course, I don't see that happening in 2023, to be honest. That's certainly something for the long-term future. And then more volume possibly coming from the models that are addressing this really larger total addressable market in the sub-brand category that will be closer to BYD, Tesla, and Xiaopeng in terms of the sales price, right? So for now, the NIO brand, premium to luxury, focusing on BMW, Mercedes, Audi, and that's the sales potential they see.
For your question, we can see that for the first 2 months of this year, the market demand is not that strong, especially when it comes to the demand for the BEV. We see this has suffered some impact. But if you look at all the peers, I believe most peers have published their delivery results for the first 2 months. This is actually affecting everyone in the market. I believe a very important factor is the subsidy cuts. Starting from this year, there will be no more subsidies, and this will create some short-term effect on everyone in this market. But when it comes to NIO specifically, because we have a relatively higher MSRP, so this impact on us is actually relatively lower compared with others. Starting from the February, we can see the demand is recovering week by week, including the ES7 and the ET7 compared with January.
Very good statement.
So for the ES7 and the ET7, we can see that in their specific segment, they're still very competitive. So we're very confident when it comes to the demand for the ES7 and the ET7 in the long run. But in the short term, yes, we are facing some pressure. I believe that there are multiple factors we have to consider, probably like the Spring Festival and the low seasonalities of the auto market, as well as the subsidies or other micro environment. But still, we are very confident with our product competitiveness in their specific segment.
在效率提升方面，这个确实是我们今年的一个工作的重点。因为去年来讲的话呢，我们的人员扩展的非常的快。那我们有很多项目开展，这个很多项目开始这个进行。
It's very good explanation, and also in line with what I'm always saying here on the market, that this is a general thing, a macro theme. Everyone is down 50% from December into January, including Tesla, despite price cuts. Great to hear that in November, week by week, the demand is picking up. That was today also even kind of confirmed with the PMI data coming out from China, very positive. That's why Chinese stocks are bouncing. And yeah, good to hear this again here from management. One of the really good questions of the analysts here so far. So credit to this analyst who asked the question. Let's hear what Li Bin maybe also has to tell about the topic of efficiency gains, because I think this is also a great concern to have.
Yes, actually, the efficiency improvement is the most important task for NIO this year. Last year, because of the project progress, and we have multiple projects going in parallel, so the human resources increase is much faster compared with the past. But when it comes to the efficiency improvement, we are not talking about cutting projects we believe that the efficiency is more about improving the efficiency per person. We can improve the overall efficiency of the whole organization when it comes to the R&D, sales and service, and also management. At the same time, we also need to do some prioritization of a different kind of a product, including the R&D projects and also the CapEx investment. So it means that we need to look at the priority in terms of the timeline and also the investment. So all in all, the efficiency improvement will more focus on the output and the quality of the output, as well as the prioritization.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
Okay, this was kind of similar to what Li Bin wrote in the management letter. Yeah, let's see.
威廉跟管理层大家好，谢谢让我问问题。我就两个比较简单的战略。
Okay, so this question is still in Chinese, so I have maybe a little bit of time to elaborate again. So that was really the best questions from an analyst so far during this call around the efficiency and also the latest impacts. And while the first question was really good, I think in the terms of how Li Bin replied, for the part of the efficiency gains, I think would be great to have a little bit more arguments like how they are going to address the weaker margin issues and increase that going forward. But generally, good that he asked these questions and had some time to respond to it.
但我知道可能没有，只是他的这个 investment 的这个或者相对 capex size， 我们该怎么去考虑这个事情？就是把这全部考虑的话，我们整体的break-even
Yes, relax. They mentioned the Chinese New Year and January effect, the seasonality effect, basically all the things that I'm always also talking about here on the channel. So mentioning that this affected the whole industry as well. So
can we talk about the potential investment side for new initiative? Thank you.
好，谢谢 Nick。我们这个今年的话，当然我们会一方面会引进新的这个电池的这个合作伙伴。我们在今年这个3月份吧，我们应该是最近的话呢，我们和这个中航的合作的这个电池包就会上线啊。那么当然我们和宁德当然会保持一个长期的战略合作的关系。那么我们也在跟他们讨论一些新的价格的机制啊，当然还没有签署最终的协议，但是从方向上来讲的话呢，我想电池公司也是。
So while Li Bin is also answering in Chinese, I think going forward, what is the most important thing here that NIO has to answer and or analysts also need to wrap their head around, and frankly also you as retail investor, is about when will NIO start recovering the margins and grow sustainably their deliveries going forward. And I think that's why the statement about February sales or intake is picking up again was very important. And also the long-term outline that NIO gave in terms of what are the goals here of the potential.
I believe probably around March, we're going to launch new battery packs in collaboration with the ALB. At the same time, we will also keep our long-term strategic relationship with the CATL. Right now, we're in discussion with the CATL in terms of the new agreement, but we haven't signed the agreement yet. I believe that the discussion direction is basically that the battery companies will start to work in parallel with the auto companies, and we are going to share the volatilities of the raw material cost together throughout the supply chain. When it comes to the semi-solid battery, we have a sense of battery teams to help our partners in the semi-solid battery make sure they can have a smooth mass production for the batteries. But we're really sorry for the delay, but probably this will be available. We estimate this will be available probably after several months.
第二个问题就是 我们新业务的投资规模，总体来说的话呢，全年差不多是40-50亿人民币的这样一个投资的规模，那么每个 Q 的话呢，就是超过10个亿人民币吧，总的投资规模差不多是这样。那当然，从我们总体的一个目标的角度来讲，我们仍然是希望实现在明年整个公司能够 break even 的这样的一个目标啊，这仍然是我们的一个目标。
Regarding the investment for the strategic new businesses, for the full year, we estimate that this will be around 4 to 5 billion RMB. So if we break it down, then it means that probably around 1 billion RMB every quarter. The overall target for the company is that for the group, we still aim to achieve a break even for the company in 2024.
好的，
谢谢你。
谢谢。
The next question comes from Edison Yu with Deutsche Bank. Please go ahead.
Hey, thank you for taking the questions. First one, can you maybe go over some feedback you've gotten in Europe? You've been in Norway for over a year. You recently launched in several other countries. What has been the user feedback, and what is a reasonable amount of volume we could expect there in the next few years? And then second question, really quick, on the other margin, it's still quite negative. It's been quite negative. When can we see some recovery in that level? Thank you.
Fairly good question by Edison Yu now. Let's see. Once again, here the reiteration of the break-even target for the whole company in 2024. Before we heard that 2023 Q4 might be somewhat of a break-even quarter, but not considering the investment into the sub-brands, which definitely will happen. So this is kind of a internal metric, something that will not show up for, let's say, Wall Street or us investors. So expect Q4 2023 still to be negative, not a profitable quarter. But the underlying business itself would be turning profitable by then, except for the fact that they are investing into the sub-brands, and then the full profit, the full year profit, which they just reiterated, was for 2024.
逐步的走上正轨，但总的来说，我们要加快这个基础设施建设的速度。那今年我们仍然不是把在欧洲的交付量当为我们的目标，所以如果从今年来讲的话呢，我们认为全年来说的话呢，我们认为在我们来说吧，我们觉得应该不会，这个我们的目标没有超过1万台，这个我们是把用户满意度当成我们的这个最优先的目标。但长期来说，我们还是非常有信心的。长期来说的话，看到产品的竞争力，还有用户的满意度，这个我们还是非常有信心的。
Thank you for your question. European markets, we have delivered our products to some users, and those users have been speaking very highly about our products. We have been tracking the user satisfaction rate on a weekly basis, and we believe that this basically meets our expectation. The one aspect that we think is lagging behind is the infrastructure building in Europe. Right now, we have around 11 power swap stations. This is actually far behind our original planning. That's the same with the deployment of the new houses in Europe. So we believe because the infrastructure deployment in Europe is lagging behind, which also affected the delivery and the sales in the European market. When we look at the user demand and the test drive data, we can see there are some improvements on a weekly basis, and the team building is also on track for the European market. But the only thing that we need to speed up is the infrastructure building in the European market. For this year, we believe the sales is not our top priority. To be honest, our target in terms of the sales volume for the European market this year is probably less than 10K, and we believe the most important thing for us is actually the user satisfaction rate. For the long run, we are very confident about our performance in the European markets when we consider the user satisfaction rate that we are seeing right now and the competitiveness of our product portfolio in the market.
Okay, for the second question about the other loss, as the sales and car park growing in China, the losses from vehicle repair and maintenance are continuously narrowing. We kept expanding our power swap station network in 2022, which drove the loss increase of other loss. And we will stick to the continuous deployment of power network and plan to newly build 1,000 power swap stations in 2023, as William mentioned. Therefore, we expect the loss of other business will continue to increase in 2023. But the continuous expansion of our power infrastructure will not only help us improve our user satisfaction, but also help us to sell more cars in the market. So that's all. Thank you, Edison.
Thank you, Edison.
The next question comes from Jin Chang with CICC. Please go ahead.
Okay, this question is also in Chinese first. So I can reiterate on one more point regarding the battery swappings build out is expected to generate more costs still in 2023. Of course, these massive expansion plans of 1,000 battery swap stations, but management is kind of saying like this is kind of our marketing tool in order to drive sales too. So I think ultimately there will be a long-term business plan for battery swapping, for example, energy arbitrage trading as a grid balancing, and also charging users for it ultimately, because that's exactly what Tesla did as well. Free supercharging in the very beginning for the first 300,000 users. So NIO's basically similar here. But of course, for now, it is an invest case. And that is, the not so nice news here, that this is continuous pressure on the other revenue expenses.
到的一些这样的一些总结。我举一个例子，比如说，我们在山东的滨州博兴县下边有一个新福。
Unfortunately, I now missed the question by the analyst, but I guess we'll still hear from the translation of Li Win's answer, like what was it all about? Sorry, it's getting quicker and quicker with the analyst questions here. Some of them have been fairly on point. I think some have really asked questions which we already knew the answer about. But it's always good that there is some time for management to reply to them. I have to say the overall feeling is that this time they are more conservative with their outlook than they have been in the past, which I think is mainly because of the fact of the learning that this transition to the latest platform is taking its toll currently with the margins and with a longer transition period than initially anticipated.
所以我们今年的这种下沉市场的发展，更多的是。
But on the other hand, we also got some great insights today with reiterating the guidance about profitability and potential sales.
When it comes to the expansion into the sub-tier cities, we're not talking about the deployment of the new houses or new spaces. We believe that the more efficient way is to deploy the power swap stations in the sub-tier cities. For example, in Boxing, in Shandong province, Binzhou, Boxing, there's some growing user base, and the users at the beginning, they actually grow the user base themselves, and then they worked together with us to deploy the power swap stations. That's the first power swap stations. Then later we deployed the second power swap stations in this town, and now this town has around 500 users. So for those sub-tier cities, especially when it comes to the tier 3 and tier 4 cities, we think the more efficient way for us to grow our user base is to deploy the power swap stations. Previously, our power swap station is mainly deployed in the tier 1 and tier 2 cities, but this is our strategy this year to make sure we can deploy more power swap stations in the tier 3 and the tier 4 cities.
好的，谢谢。我第二个问题是关于整体的这个定价的战略，尤其是新的产品。然后今年开始呢，我看到整体现在市场价格竞争还是比较激烈的。虽然我们可能定位的还是比较豪华市场，但是仍然能够看到无论是 SC 新能源还是燃油车竞品，可能都会有更大的一个降价和促销。那我们在这个尤其是新发布的这个车型，像新的866，然后以及可能这个全新的这个车型上面，价格策略会不会更加的下沉和激进一些？或者会否考虑可能减配的一些方式，去推出更低的一些价格的这个款型？So my second question about we can see that at the beginning of this year, the price competition in the new energy vehicle market has become more fiercer, and although we are positioning luxury brand market, we can still see a greater price reduction in both new energy and ICE vehicle market. So we will be more aggressive in the price strategy of new models. Will you consider the way of reducing some configuration and to introduce more models with lower price?
我们一直的策略都是希望是一个稳定的一个价格的策略，我们也没有去推出减配的这样的一些计划啊。我们认为我们的定价是对用户来说是足够有价值的。这个不管是我们每一款车，如果去看它的配置、它的性能、它的智能化的程度以及相关的一些服务的传译，那对用户来说是这个物有所值的，所以我们并没有去在 NIO 这个 brand 下面，我们并没有这个去做减配这样的一些想法啊，因为也不低价，也不是我们这个NIO 这个 brand 下面的一个策略。
Our consistent strategy is to keep our product pricing stable. So we do not have any plan to cut the features and functions for our product. For each of our products in our product portfolio, we believe when we look at the features, the functions, and the performance of those products, as well as the user benefits, we think every aspect of the product is well deserved and well established when it comes to the product pricing and strategy. So for the NIO brand, we do not have any plan to cut the features and the functions of our products, and I think this is consistent of our branding and the pricing strategy, because low pricing is not a part of the strategy or the DNA of the NIO brand.
Thank you, Jing.
In my point of view, very good answer. I know some people would prefer to hear something different about price cuts. But I think it's good that NIO is trying to position in this premium to luxury brand market, directly competing with let's say, the Germans, BMW, Mercedes, Audi. I think they're fairly, really, as a Chinese brand, fairly successful at this. And we just got the reiteration here. I think the conference call has finished, so I can go maybe into the full picture mode here, right? So then I think what was my thought here? NIO has positioned in this premium to luxury segment, which is certainly different from let's say BYD or Tesla and Xiaopeng, which are targeting more the mass market as of now. And I think it wouldn't make much sense for NIO to really reduce prices and try and play the catch-up game there, and instead, kind of trying to work their way out into kind of really, strengthening this. What I think is a unique achievement. I mean, you've never had a Chinese brand competing up there with, on par of quality of both the product and the service with those established manufacturers. And so I think ultimately this will be a long-term win for the NIO brand if they manage to do that. Unfortunately, the drawback we've seen today in the Q4 earnings and a little bit also in the outlook, in the short-term outlook, that there is certainly pressure on the company. Some of the pressure is about some kind of operations, logistics in terms of transitioning between different platforms and so on. But ultimately, we hear the first signs of the Chinese market recovering now. So we have the macro news today that the PMI in China was a beat, actually the largest print in a decade since 2012. And while this is only about manufacturing, it's still an indication. And I think those large tickets like premium to luxury cars as well as houses and stuff, this will be coming back in 3 to 6 months. And so this is also where NIO is kind of focusing at call on this long-term potential, what will happen in Q4 and 2024, guiding towards this potential of 30,000 monthly sales of this currently existing fleet for just the NIO brand. It's not going to happen overnight to get the order books full. And for example, Tesla had to cut prices extremely in order to, make sure that they can grow their numbers. Although I have to say, and I'm also invested in Tesla, that, it really just helped them, as far as I can see the numbers now, to, flatten out their sales for now. So it is a difficult situation in whole China right now, but I'm seeing the first signs and also to the second half of the year. Now, the question is, did we already see the bottom in, let's say, the margins and, the impact? I think it didn't sound really like, they could have gone, it's only growth, and recovery of margins. I think they gave a little bit more of a long-term outlook here. And possibly that is also out of the kind of, this was the mistake that I've done, frankly, in Q3, Q4 last year in the earnings calls, that have been maybe guiding too positively. And then COVID came, lockdowns came, and boom, suddenly the whole planning was thrown overboard, right? So maybe they're now more conservative, and that might help ultimately, setting the expectations a bit lower this time than before. But I think so. That was the main takeaway with the sales potential, delivery potential. Then the second one about profitability, still kind of hinting a kind of profitable quarter this year by Q4, but not a real profitable quarter if you're technically fair, because they set on a internal metric in which we see the existing business, we will turn profitable, but we have to invest more money in our sub-brands, and this will show up in the investments in R&D cost and so on. So unlikely that Q4 in 2023 will already be a full profitable quarter, but they guided for 2024 for profitability, in which ultimately everything should be in full swing. I think it's kind of, what Wall Street successfully sniffed out here. So you've seen the weakness in the stock, and that was a good anticipation of the situation of NIO there. And the question is, is this fully priced in? This is something which the analysts now need to wrap their heads around. This is something where you as an investor need to wrap your head around, and it's also about your personal risk preferences, and also in terms of like, are you more looking on the short term or on the long term? I would say, frankly, the stock has been quite depressed recently. So, on the delivery side, I don't see all of this negativity really being that real. So the delivery numbers are actually quite okay. They are quite still growing consistently, considering all of the aspects. So it hasn't cratered like, for example, a Xiaopeng, which is even selling at much lower average sales prices. But certainly you can definitely see and feel that the company is under much pressure from both market, like the macroeconomics, the economy, but also internally of managing this transition. And that transition wasn't managed in an ideal way, and certainly not communicated in an ideal way. And I think that has led to quite a bit of setback on the stock price, also in terms of people didn't want to touch the stock until they get more clarity on that. Did this management call put more clarity on that matters? Well, I think simply due to the fact that we finally had this management call, yes, it did. But now it's kind of up to the analysts and the investors in Wall Street with all of their insider knowledge and whatever to really see it in the numbers. Is now this February order intake pickup already showing up in the numbers and the expectations of investors, or do they have to be still more conservative on the impacts on some of those things that we've heard about shifting to the new lines and stuff like that. So we'll see about this. Definitely also watch my video where I did this full take about the earnings report. That's a separate video. This video, once again, if you're new to this conference call now, this live call, this is only about the earnings call and the management questions, and watch it again from the very beginning in case you have missed the start. It's always very good to hear it firsthand, so you get also a personal impression. It's all about emotions as well and what is being said between the lines. But my other video is more about the numbers and my personal expectations and what have been the highlights or the main downsides, which are frankly, of course, mainly the margins, which have been well below the expectations in my point of view. And so, that's it for now. Let's see if we have a couple of more questions that I can dive into or comments here. Here's one. Deliveries are very solid. I also think they are quite solid, frankly, in terms of given what's going on in the industry. They're investing too much, Danny. They're investing much indeed. That's true. The question is, do you not want to invest and instead just to put out a profitability for investors, but then down the line you are missing the boat in having not a nice lineup and new the latest technology and stuff. We also have always to consider that NIO was almost on the verge of bankruptcy, and then where they couldn't invest. So now where they have actually a good cash position and everything is up and running again, this is the time when they finally can make investments. And also there is a window of opportunity, for example, right now in Europe, where they can make market entry. Maybe they will enter the US. If they make those kind of investments later on, maybe it will be too late in order to make really an impact on the market a couple of years down the road. So you got to trust the management there that they are taking the right steps, or if you disagree with it, then of course it's time for you to get out of the stock. So this is something why we are listening to these calls. How's my car? I will definitely make separate videos on the ET7. So far, what can I say? NIO Pilot has blown me away. I really liked that one. That was my main surprise so far that I can tie you on, but definitely more content on that to come. Interesting. More and more people curious about that. So we've started a road trip now. I was waiting till this earnings call until I finally switched to making that content about we're actually driving around in Germany, but also going down to Southern Europe a little bit and really put it to a test and see whether or not NIO is ready for Europe. But let's get back to some numbers. Here's one question by Muhammad Marcel regarding 30K monthly. Was that mentioned a target for 2023 or also whole capacity? No, I think that's not for 2023 because that would be a very, well, maybe, you could say it could be a monthly target for, let's say, the end of 2023, but you cannot expect them every month, of course, to meet this number right now. So I think that's kind of the potential that I see ultimately being the goal for it. All right, what's it? What's more to answer here? Once again, please also watch my other videos, which already contains a lot of insights into the financials. Okay, what's here? Deliveries don't matter if the margins are crushed. They need 3 extra deliveries to match 2021 margins. Yep, of course, they need to bring up the margins again. They've guided to 18 to 20% margin, that they can achieve that by the end of this year again. So that would be at the same margin level again, and then ultimately also at much higher volume. So that will be already quite nice. However, I think maybe most investors were already anticipating like higher margins. So for example, I was thinking we could see now already margins back to around 18% by now, actually, and then finally getting to above 20% margins in 2023. That seems to be not happening as early. Yeah, that's kind of a bummer. That's certainly not good. What else? No, they haven't talked about entering new countries like the UK and Australia. They just talked a little bit about the market resonance in Europe, that they're getting good feedback there, but that they are not having too much expectations on really high numbers out of Europe for the beginning. Which kind of makes sense, I think, because they need to first scale up the team and infrastructure and get everything up and going. But the product itself is well received, and I just posted also in the Patreon community, basically. But by the way, also a report that in the Norwegian market, in the area of customer satisfaction and quality, the ES8, so the old NIO model, scored actually second place out of 37 cars, and that's in a market which is really all about EVs. So that's quite good customer feedback there, but not expecting huge numbers out of Europe that really make an impact, considering that China is the biggest and most important market. All right. Maybe last question that I'll cover here, and then it's already a very long live stream, and I will wrap it up here. Was anything mentioned about a 150 kilowatt battery? No, I think if I didn't miss it, there wasn't anything about this, only that they're also now working with another battery manufacturer to also diversify for their sourcing of batteries. So a little bit getting away from just having CATL. That 150 kilowatt hour battery, though, as far as I'm concerned, will be launched this year, but only in small numbers. But it will finally come to the market a little bit later than initially planned. Okay, Eddie, and now the really final question, and then thanks for all of you tuning in and sticking around so long. My thoughts about the sub-brands. Well, if you watch this channel since quite some time, you know that I was initially not a fan of the sub-brands. I never invested in NIO because of the sub-brands. Actually, I like the premium to luxury positioning there. But it seems NIO has higher ambitions in terms of becoming one of the really also large volume producers. We'll see. For now, everything is undisclosed, so we don't know how will the car be looking like that is smaller. And for Europe, actually, this is an aspect that I really like about the sub-brands, because I always think that the NIO cars are quite big cars, and I think for real sustainable transportation, we also need smaller cars. So I really appreciate that, and that should be good. However, yeah, it certainly should be perceived well by the markets if they, go also in those larger addressable markets that will ultimately also push volumes to a much higher number, right? So it should be good for the markets at least. But yeah, I'll reserve my comments on the actual impacts of those sub-brands until we see what they're actually planning with it and how the product will look like. So far, it's not too much part of my investment thesis overall, to be honest. Okay, that's it for now. Thank you guys for tuning in. Please feel free to slash the like button and also maybe share it with other new investors to kind of get some context on these earnings. I try to cover it with an unbiased view as much as I can. But as you know, I'm not only a product owner now, but also a shareholder. And of course, so therefore, I am certainly having a certain bias there, but I'm trying to cover it neutral as much as I can. I do think that this was kind of a underwhelming report, by the way. So this is the general feedback, which I think might be in line with the market, but I do think that this was also largely expected by the markets given the share price. So we'll see. NIO always volatile after the earnings where it goes. I think if you're a long-term investor, yeah, that might be a short-term opportunity here. Who knows? Frankly, I'm having the long-term view on that. I'm not trading around my personal position, but that might be different for you. You might want to, be opportunistic there, here and there. So it's up to you and to your risk profile, but that's certainly not for me. Anyways, I appreciate again your time and your support. A special shout out to the patrons supporting us. Otherwise, I couldn't do it the way we're doing it. And so thank you guys for watching and see you in the next one.